Terrible. Just terrible across the board. Injuries. Terrible calls by the refs. Atrocious calls by the refs. Why does this keep continuing? It's not only our game. It's across the NFL. We'll dig deeper into that. It's just inexplicable. But then us, too, as a team, was terrible, both offensively and defensively. The problem is, I don't know if there's any major takeaways from this game because it just feels incomplete. I guess major takeaways outside of the stuff that we already know. Offense starts off slow. We know that. Happened again this game. And then rush defense, not really there. And then we'll give up some chunk plays in the past on defense. We've known that in 2023. We've known that. But we've been able to get out of stadiums, despite all that, with dubs. So that's why this game feels incomplete, because we didn't have our guy, Kenny Pickett, in there at quarterback to close it out. Because we had the setup. This was it, man. And I was feeling calm in the first half. Offense starting a little slow. Kenny, Deontay didn't have their rhythm down, but we weren't turning the ball over. Defense was making plays, turning it over for the Jaguars. Well, we have three. Was it two? It was two turnovers in the first half, but then we got that third turnover in the third quarter. So, we were doing the formula. We were doing the Steelers 2023 win formula. Keep the game close. Kenny Clutch is going to come out there fourth quarter, win the game. You know how it is. Defense will put the clamps on them in the second half too, and we'll get out of it with an ugly win. But the football gods had different plans because Kenny Pickett gets injured, and we have our backup in there, Mr. Trubisky, and we got to see clearly he is a backup for a reason. You get some flashes. You got a nice touchdown pass to Pickens, and that whole drive was actually pretty good. That one where he threw to Deontay, he was running all over the backfield on third down. Complete that pass, keep the chains moving. That was nice. You get to see some nice wild plays from Mitch here and there, but he makes stupid decisions and just thinks he's a gunslinger, or he thinks he's Patrick Mahomes. He thinks he's the guy that got drafted in the same draft class, but he's not him, unfortunately. Not him. It just feels really incomplete. I thought we could have got out of the stadium with a dub, but just so many factors against us. And it's not an excuse because we still played bad. It's just all of it wrapped into one. As my partner for the podcast, Arthur Metz, would say, context, the layers to how the Steelers lost. End of the day, it is on us, but some of these terrible ref calls and also these injuries did not help either. Just really a bummer because I do still think we could have won. If Mitch would have came in second half and did what he was supposed to, not throw interceptions, because the game was still very much in balance. We get the ball 17-10. It was middle of the fourth quarter, and he throws one up into triple coverage. He throws a wobbler up into triple coverage. Just don't turn the ball over. Just don't turn the ball over. Keep the chains moving. And, we needed to score. I was going to say, keep the chains moving. Don't turn the ball. Don't take risks. We had to start taking risks. We needed to score a touchdown. But that wasn't it. Throwing a ball up in triple coverage, I can live with maybe something else. But a ball up in triple coverage, nah. I don't think Kenny's doing that, man. I don't think Kenny's doing that. Now, Kenny didn't have his best game, but again, we've seen it how many times this season? We've seen it how many times in Kenny's 18, 19 starts? If we can keep the game close in the fourth quarter, if we can keep the game close late, dude can deliver for us. I'm seeing a lot of fire cannon in the chat. I don't think that's the energy this week. I don't. We'll get into it, though. We'll get into it. There's 3 or 4 things I really wanted to highlight. First, we'll go over the first half offense. I'll also go over the atrocious calls by the refs. And then talk some individual players. And then we'll wrap it up. Let's see who's in the chat right now. This is just a bummer. Really a bummer. Because there's uncertainty going forward now, too, with Kenny. With Minka and the hamstring. Hamstring injury, that could take you out a month, at least. Kenny's ribs, I don't know, man. If you can't throw a football, that's a problem. And obviously he wasn't able to for the second half. Can't throw a football. That's a problem if you're a quarterback. I don't know if it's going to get better within a week. Don't know. Remix 84 says, what's good, Deke? Not the Steelers today, man. Not the Steelers today. KG0614 is in the house. Glenn Williams. Zaytine says, to be honest, you can't blame Matt for that one. Yeah, we'll get into it. Cal Monier, terrible weather, injuries. I thought the terrible weather was helping us out for a minute. Etienne wasn't able to get much going on the ground first half. There was some slipping. Thought it made the game ugly for us because Jaguars, we can't admit they have a little bit better of an offense than ours right now. Made the game ugly, but didn't matter in the second half. Didn't, because run defense went out the window. Defense just in general was, again, on the field way too much this game. Etienne started gashing us. Lawrence, what do you have? I think he had 300 yards, almost 292. He's 24-32, 292 touchdown interception. He played a pretty good game. Although I think he got lucky on some of those passes down the field. Casey took a terrible angle on that ball, on that Etienne wheel route where he got past Porter. I thought that was going to be intercepted. But Casey just took a terrible angle. And there was another one that Lawrence chucked down center of the field. Receiver caught. I can't remember if it was Ridley. I think it was Ridley. We had two guys right there. It just didn't even look like they were looking. I think it was Casey again. Wasn't it Casey? He almost did the Minnesota Miracle. He went for the hit and completely whiffed him. But if he just would have looked up, he probably could have contested for the ball. He had a mixed bag of a game. He had that nice interception, although Lawrence threw it right to him. I could have intercepted that pass. But, yeah, he was making some weird plays in coverage. Decent in tackling. Was getting his hand in the dirt. Coach Stu is in the house. What's good, man? Castro. Chris Delp. I want to read this comment from Castro. It says, doesn't matter who plays quarterback, defense is on the field for 80% of this game. Yeah, it's been a problem, but the formula has been we start cooking in the second half. And you can see how the offense started playing in that second quarter. We got that little drive that set up balls for the field goal. Then the refs make that inexplicable call, a center offsides on a field goal formation. Don't think I've ever seen that in my life. But okay, refs are just going to randomly call it against the Steelers today. Okay, cool, whatever. Cost us 3 points right there. But also the drive before that, after the Casey interception. That was a really nice drive. We go from our own 4 or 5, take it all the way down the field. Kenny and Deontay are cooking. The Jaguars can't stop them at all. And if Kenny didn't miss Deontay in the end zone, we punched that in for 6. But we're able to get the field goal. 1-score game. I think it was 9-3. We get the ball back. And then, Boswell set it up for the field goal, get it to 9-6. That's our formula. I was feeling so good and calm. I was like, yeah, this is just Steeler football 2023. This is just Steeler football. I'm good with it. I've been here before. I've seen this movie. Then Kenny gets hurt. And that was actually another terrible ref call. We're going to call roughing the passer on the Keanu Neal hit. Trevor Lawrence, basic rudimentary tackle. We're calling roughing the passer on that. Hits him in the hips. Doesn't drive him to the ground or anything. It's just a basic tackle. We're going to call roughing the passer on that, but not on the one that took Kenny Pickett out of the game. Make it make sense. But again, going back to Matt Canada and the offense in the first half, when we did have all of our starters out there, we only put up 3 points. Should have been 6 if the first Boswell field goal would have counted. We didn't get that BS call by the refs to make it a 60-yarder, which consequently Bos then missed, halting his streak of 100% field goals being made this year. Not amazing. Not something we should be clamorizing for and saying, oh, great job by the offense. It's only 3 points in the first half. Should have been 6 points. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. But I don't think this was a Canada ineptitude type of game as to why we only put up single digits in the first half. I don't think we should put it there because the opening script, I think we can agree, was fine. And that's the type of stuff that you game plan for. What do you game script? The first 15, 16 plays. The first play was literally designed to be a touchdown for Deontay Johnson. Kenny Pickett makes a really nice throw. Deontay, post route, over the middle of the field, in between cover two, drops it. Is that a Matt Canada thing, or is that a Deontay Johnson thing? I'd say that's more Deontay Johnson. And then still in the first half, it's not only Deontay Johnson. He had another drop. Same series. I think it was the third play in the series. The third down, Kenny rolls out. Chooks gets a holding. So even though Deontay dropped this pass as well, nothing was happening in that drive, in that series. But that's not a Matt Canada thing. It's just not. We got to be real with ourselves. Kenny missed George Pickens at some point in that first half, streaking down the middle of the field on a crosser. Kenny underthrew it. He was open. He was wide open. Is that a Kenny thing or is that a Matt Canada thing? That's more of a Kenny thing. There was miscommunication between Kenny and Deontay a couple times. One was for a touchdown on that really nice drive that we had after the KZ interception. Is that a Canada thing or is that a Kenny Pickett thing? I'd say that's more Kenny Pickett, Deontay. Now that one I'm going to put more on Kenny Pickett, but there was another one. There was clear miscommunication. Middle of the field, Kenny threw it to the outside. Deontay was inside. Almost a pick. Thank God the Jaguars cornerback dropped it, but I think that was a miscommunication. Again, I don't think that's on Matt Canada. So there were so many hiccups that were happening due to the players in the first half, and as to why we weren't putting up crazy stats or a ton of points that I just can't pin on Matt Canada like that. But at the same time, even despite all those mistakes, I think we were still setting ourselves up to get that dub in the second half. And if anything, I would say the offense with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, with all of our starters out there, woke up earlier than what we're used to seeing, like in the Ravens game or even last week against the Rams. And I love how the offense and this team finished in the second half. But that didn't start cooking until end of third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. We saw some nice offensive drives in that second quarter. Nice offensive drives. The ones I already mentioned. After the KZ interception, it was like a 90-play drive. And then also the one to set us up for the Boswell field goal. Those count. Those count for something. And I thought we were going to just keep the momentum going in the second half. But again, Kenny gets hurt and Mitch comes in, and Mitch is Mitch. Mitch is Mitch. Had some highlights, had some flashy plays, have some plays that remind you, this is why this dude was, number 2 overall pick back in the day. But then you get other plays like the interceptions and the almost interception. Like he probably could have thrown 4 or 5 interceptions if the Jaguars dudes didn't drop the ball. His final stat line could have been 1 touchdown and 4 picks. You got those type of plays that remind you as to why he's been a journeyman thus far in the league, going from the Bears to the Bills and now back up with the Steelers. But I thought we were teeing ourselves up, no matter how ugly the game was. We had the Minka injury. We had the defense giving up some chunk plays at times. We had the offense being inconsistent in the first half. We were teeing ourselves up for a 2023 Steelers win. But that involves Kenny Pickett playing quarterback in the second half. That's why Kenny Pickett's the starter and Mitch Trubisky is the backup. Now let's get to some of these calls. I've been hinting at them. I've been talking about them a little bit throughout this stream thus far. These refs are terrible, man. Absolutely terrible. They should not be having this type of impact on games. They should not. It was at least a 3 to 6 point swing in the first half because of some of their terrible calls. First, let me just get to the quarterback one because we've been talking about Kenny Pickett leaving the game and how that impacted the second half for us. They call, hold on. Let me get my producer game on real quick. They call, we'll start with the Trevor Lawrence one. They call this one. No, they don't call this one. I'm sorry. No, I'm getting everything completely mixed up in my mind. They call this one. Here it is. Hold on. I'm going in between tabs here. Okay. They call this roughing the passer. They called this roughing the passer. A normal NFL tackle. And if anything, Keanu Neal lets up as he's taking down Trevor Lawrence. Look at this. He lets up. He probably could have went harder. He probably could have really tried to hurt him if he wanted to. But he let up. And this is textbook. Made an excellent tackle. No helmet involved. Hits him in the torso with the shoulder. Gently takes him down. But no, roughing the passer, 15 yards. But let's contrast this hit to the one that took place on Kenny Pickett that knocked him out for the rest of the game. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Because as we look at these two plays, you tell me which one is the harder hit. I'm not even asking for this Kenny Pickett one to be called roughing the passer. Now, in today's soft NFL, I think it has a better case than the one that got called on Trevor Lawrence. For sure. We can all agree on that, right? So if you're going to call the Trevor Lawrence one roughing the passer, why not this one? Keep it consistent. He drives him way more to the ground than what Keanu Neal was doing on Trevor Lawrence. This is insane. Now, Kenny still gets hurt either way on this, whether they give us the flag or not. But if they do give us the flag here, I believe this is right before the Boswell field goal. We are in closer field goal range. Boswell obviously had the range from 55. So, even if we do still get that Mason Cool penalty, that's what, a 45-yard field goal? Boz has been money from there all year. He's been money from there for most of his career. We know who Boz is. He's our franchise kicker. Well, speaking of that, let's just transition to that call then too. That's two terrible calls by the refs. Trevor Lawrence, roughing the passer, the Kenny Pickett no call. Then you have, and you even heard the CBS broadcast booth after. And I was wondering what was going on because we were seeing this way too many times throughout the game where they wouldn't show the replays on some of these penalty calls that were going against the Steelers. They would not show them. There was a James Pierre holding call where it's like, okay, let's see the holding. Where's it at? Because this looked like a very, very normal football play. Got the Jaguars on third down. Looks like they're about to punt. All of a sudden, James Pierre holding call. Out of nowhere. Show the replay. Something seemed off. And then same thing happened with that field goal right before halftime. They call offsides on the Steelers. Did not show the replay. But then after halftime, before that third quarter started, the guys in the broadcast booth went over it. And even they said, they're like, yeah, man, this is a shaky call. I've never seen this actually called in a game. I've never seen a call with an offsides on a center. Why are they doing it right now? No clue. But speaking of Pierre, there were also a couple calls on him. I mentioned the holding, but there was a defensive pass interference in the first quarter. Made an excellent play on it. Didn't even touch the receiver before the ball got out there. What he did was he jumped over him, put his hand in front, made an excellent pass deflection on it. It was excellent. But they decided to call defensive pass interference. So we've been seeing this game in and game out with the refs. I know it could go both ways, but is there any question that every call went against us today? I get it. You can't put all the blame on the refs. We weren't good on offense, defense as a whole. But this took part in the loss. It had something to do with it. If Kenny was still in there, one of those calls in the first half could have affected how the game played out because it was a close game. If it's 9-6 instead of 9-3 going into halftime, who knows? You never know. You never know how that can affect the game. And it's just, it's one thing if it's a gray area type of call or a gray area type of thing. Like, I could see it going either way. It's like, no, these are clear and obvious. These are clear and obvious that the refs really mess this up. That's what it's just hard to watch. I think that's where I'm getting at, man. I think that's where I'm getting at with this. It's really hard to watch obvious terrible calls being made that have big impact. It's like, what are we watching this for? I'm trying to watch solid football. I'm trying to watch a game where the teams actually playing have more impact on the result than what the refs do, right? It's just what we're looking for when we turn on a football game. But it's happening too continuously. It's not only Steeler games, it's around the NFL. It's around the NFL. I don't know if it's due to social media and how much coverage we have on these games now, but I don't remember it being like this. I do not. This has been some of the worst I've seen in a while. Let me see if you guys got any interesting takes before I wrap this up. We'll go rapid fire with some players, just break down some of their performances, then we'll get out of here. Enjoy the rest of our Sundays, best we can after this rough loss. Bugs Whiskers 84 says KP8 has no vision. I don't know what you're talking about, man. He was lighting it up second quarter. He shows you what he's capable of. Dude can sling the rock. Him and Deontay really got going there. DPN 281. If Pickett hits a few first half passes, that's a different game. Yeah, and that's why I said you can't put it all on the refs. You can't. It plays a part, though. It plays a part of a game flow. And potentially the result of the game. Potentially. You would put the hierarchy of obviously players, coaches, all that stuff. I mean, there is still a lot of things in our control. There's only how many bad calls or how many calls refs make throughout the course of a game. It does come down to players, coaches, and whatnot. So, yeah, Kenny does make certain throws in the first half. Could have been a different story, but the problem is he's not out there for the second half. The moral of what I've been saying this whole stream is even if we would have been up, even if, Kenny hits Deontay on the touchdown, you still need Kenny for that second half because I don't know if Mitch can be trusted like that to close us out with the dub. So no matter we're up or down going into halftime, if Kenny's our quarterback, I think we can get out of the stadium. He showed it so many times that he could deliver in the clutch. I think we can get out of it. Mitch, not as reliable though, unfortunately. Not as reliable. J Stoke 73 says Dan Moore needs to sit out and put Jones in more. Yeah, we were doing the whole Broderick Jones, Zach Banner experiment thing where we put him out there as an eligible and just the sixth blocker. I'm with you. I wouldn't mind him starting at this point. I said this after his first start. I don't think Dan Moore is doing anything spectacular. I think Broderick Jones can at least, his floor can at least be Dan Moore's level of play. But he was our first round pick. I think he has more upside. So get him in there. Yeah, Dan Moore and Chooks. Offensive line as a whole, again, I think they took a step back this game. And that's the unfortunate part. We saw some good things from them in the Rams, but went back to more of what we were seeing out of that unit from like the first 5 or 6 weeks. That's a bummer. Don Pauly, we miss Minka Fitzpatrick. I agree. Yeah. Casey, mixed bag with him. Keanu Neal missing some tackles. Minka's the best safety in the league for a reason. Doesn't help when he goes out. I'm on this energy. T. Lewis, 21-15. Trade whatever Denver wants for Shatan. I'll give up a couple first. I'll give up a couple first for him. I've been saying that. Help the secondary. JPJ looked good again, and he was out there the whole game. And that's a story, or that's something I didn't even talk about once this stream. Levi Wallace was out before this game, so JPJ had to be our starter. I was wondering if Darius Rush was going to get any time, but didn't see him out there. It was more of like James Pierre did the KZ, Neal look. Chandon Sullivan was out there a decent amount, but JPJ held his own, again, in coverage. The only slip-up was the ET and wheel route, but you heard the announcer, the football – I forget what his name was, but the guy that's supposed to be breaking it down from a football standpoint was saying that was a lot more on KZ taking a terrible angle on the ball as opposed to JPJ. Let me talk these players. We'll go individually real quick, and then we'll get out of here. I guess we'll go like winners and losers. Is that how we want to frame this? No, I'll just list players and just give some quick thoughts. Mitch Trubisky, I already talked about him enough. Mixed bag, way more on the negative side, though. Those interceptions you just can't have. He did a lot of the similar stuff that he last year when he threw the 3 picks in the Ravens game. Showed flashes, showed some really nice passes, but when it came down to it, turned the ball over, and we can't have that. That's one thing that Kenny Pickett has at least been doing on a consistent basis over these last 3 or 4 games that have kept us in the games close when the fourth quarter comes around. And Mitch is just making bad decisions out there, turning the ball over. Can't have it. Can't have it. James Pierre, I thought he played solid. If it weren't for those penalty calls, didn't see him getting cooked out there. I think that was more. Who was getting cooked the most? I mean, Calvin Ridley was definitely getting some passes early and often. Evan Ingram late in the game was doing some damage to our safeties. I don't remember JPJ getting much given up on him. Pat P? I just remember Calvin Ridley getting the ball a fair amount, and I didn't think it was due to James Pierre. I didn't remember him getting cooked that much. I thought he played a solid game outside of those penalties, but I didn't think those penalties were his fault. Those were just bad calls by the refs. Deontay Johnson. Mixed bag with him. I think mixed bag with a lot of players that I'm going to be mentioning here. Yeah, he was cooking. There were times where the Jaguars couldn't stop him. I think he almost had 100 yards on the game. He was our leading receiver, 8 receptions, 85 yards, but dropped 2 pretty big passes at the beginning of the game. You catch that first one, that probably was going to be a touchdown. You split those safeties, could have been 1 pass, 75 yards, 1 touchdown right off the bat. Steelers up 7-0. And that's what you're getting paid $18 million to do. And I know a lot of you guys were thinking this because I got texts from some people. Me and Moats jinxed Deontay because we just did an interview with him, and he came out the game. He came out the gate, 2 drops first series. But no, he picked it up second half. Or not second half, but down the stretch, second quarter, end of the second half. He was catching everything. Unfortunately, it looked like he got banged up again. I didn't think it was hamstring. What did they say it was? It was a chest. I'm sure he'll be fine. He got back out in the game. Mixed bag for him, though. More of the Deontay that we know what his reputation is, where, yeah, you're going to get good plays, good receiver, good separation, guy that the quarterback can go to, but then he'll have some critical drops at times, and that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. Hopefully that doesn't continue to pop up as the season goes on. Pickens, again, mixed bag because we didn't get him the ball enough. So it's not all on him, but you get the one play where he makes the incredible catch out of bounds. Mitch does the Kenny to Pickens type of play, basically the Pickett to Pickens back shoulder. Mitch gives it a try. Pickens does the toe tap, and I thought it was going to be in bounds because we've seen it how many times, and Pickens is always in bounds. It's always a completed catch. And he just struts up to the line like really lackadaisical. When you could hear from the announcers that, dude, you got to hurry up because if you get up there and the Jaguars don't have enough time to call the challenge, like we can get that playoff and keep the chains moving. But because Pickens was just walking around, basking in the glory. That gave the Jaguars time, I guess, people to communicate down from the box to Doug Peterson. Yo, you got to throw the challenge on this. It would be worth it. And they ultimately did. Whereas if you get up to the line of scrimmage really, really quick, you don't know what can happen. Now, could they still get the challenge flag off? Maybe, but you make it more up in the air if you could hustle up the process. And we're just seeing little things like that out of Pickens. It ain't the end of the world. It's not the end of the world, but that stuff will start adding up because you had that this week and then last week and a couple times this season, some of these, end of play, the ball was dead penalties, the unsportsmanlike and whatnot. So he did have the touchdown. He did do some George Pickens stuff, even though he wasn't getting the ball as much as we would have liked. But then you also have some of that stuff pop up. So that's unfortunate. TJ Watt, no show. Disappointing game from him. Highsmith, same thing. It just wasn't the same impact. We did get consistent pressure at times on Trevor Lawrence, particularly in the first half. But we were just waiting for that TJ Watt play. And it did happen. I think they might have gave him half a sack on it. But outside of that, disappointing performance from the deep boy. JPJ, I talked about him. Think he had a solid game overall. Najee, Jaylen Warren. Is anyone questioning at this point that Jaylen Warren is RB1? He should be RB1, get the majority of the carries. He just pops way more than Najee. I think we know this by now. Najee could still have a role for this offense. He could, but it should be a 60-70 split going in Jaylen Warren's direction. Finally, I'll give some props to Montravius Adams. He keeps making some plays, and I think he's an underrated player on the Steelers defense that doesn't get much credit. But overall, our run defense is just really, really disappointing compared to what I thought they were going to be coming into the season. Really disappointing. Cam Hayward being out probably has something to do with it. But just such a meh game. After Kenny Pickett got hurt, just meh. You had a moment or two in the second half where it's like, okay, gets the 17-10, only one score away, but then Mitch just took the energy out of the stadium, out of this team by throwing those interceptions. And it didn't help that our defense couldn't stop a nosebleed in the second half either. Just a bummer of a game, man. Just a bummer of a game overall. Let me get out of here. See if you guys have any final takes. And yeah, now we sit at what? 4-3. 4-3. Quick turnaround Thursday night against the Titans. Seeing a lot of fire Canada still. P. Marville. Can we fire Canada? I just don't know if that's the energy right now. I don't know if that's the energy. Oh, this is a good question. I don't know. This is a great question. Colton Burnday says, why Rodney and Hayward over Washington? Yeah, I didn't even see Darnell Washington out there, really. It's a good question. No clue. Yeah, didn't like that. Obviously, I think Darnell is going to help better in the blocking than a Rodney Williams or even a Connor Hayward. Connor Hayward, obviously more of a receiving asset, but yeah, that one didn't add up. X Concepts 1. What's good, man? Hey, Deke, I'm so sad after this game. Love my team. I'm so frustrated. I'm tired of being angry. These refs and officiating is so broken. Yep. It wasn't the main reason we lost, but it was something. It was there. J Stokes 73. Pat P got burnt by Jags receivers. I need to watch the game again. I do remember Calvin Ridley getting the ball a fair amount. I guess it was Pat P because Pat P, Shannon Sullivan too. Shannon Sullivan's another dude. That was the guy. Yeah. Maybe Pat P and Shannon Sullivan. I think they were our weakest links in the secondary of this game. A couple of the safeties too. As I said, Evan Ingram got off second half. JT Broncos 08 says QB's got to execute. Receivers also have to show more energy and complete catches. Yep. Jay Stokes 73, 12-5 record this year. Where are we at? So we're 4-3. Our schedule is not bad. Now it just comes down to who's healthy and who's not. If Mickey can come back sooner rather than later, if Kenny can get back, I don't think a good record, a first place division type of record, is out of question. I don't. It's just sucked because it felt like we had everything going for us after the Rams game. And that's why I felt so confident after the first half. Even though it wasn't the prettiest, there were signs that the offense was getting better, was taking steps to get things going more efficiently in a quicker manner, because we did put together that drive in the second quarter. And I was just like, okay, we're getting that. That's like house money to us. We're getting some decent drives from the offense in the second quarter. Just wait till the third and fourth quarter. We're going to get clutch Kenny. We're going to turn it on. Defense is going to get the clamps. We're going to get out of here with a dub. This is our formula. But again, 8's got to be your quarterback for that. And he could have, I've mentioned him a couple times. He could have had a much better game. I didn't think he was anything spectacular, but he did have some nice throws. He did have some nice moments. You just need more consistency. That's all. But we do got the things that we want most out of Kenny. We do got the attributes. We do got the capabilities we want most out of Kenny, and that is securing a dub late in the game. That is being clutch when it matters, when there's adversity. He's got that. He's got that. It's just, put it all together for a game. And he's young. He's getting there. This is where I'm at, too. Black Ant 51 says, y'all got to keep Fire Canada. Y'all going to keep Fire Canada, and they won't until the end of the season. It's just wasted energy. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm looking for the pauses. I'm looking for the silver linings, at least out of the offense. And I don't think this was a Fire Canada type of game. I don't. A lot more on the players. Mitch with the picks. Kenny, Deontay, mishaps in the first half. A lot more on the players than Canada. But all right, I'm out of here. Bummer of a Sunday for the Steelers. But I'll be back tomorrow. We'll go over this game more in depth. We'll probably talk some of these injuries and updates with the players and what we could look forward to with this team. Not only rest of the week, rest of the season. And, yeah, I think the trade deadline's coming up Tuesday, so I'm sure we'll talk that as well. But until tomorrow, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Stay safe. And here we go, Steelers.